So far, our trip has taken us from the Netherlands, through the heart of Germany and along the romantic road. And the last few days, we've spent most of our time in Bavaria. But now we're leaving Germany, heading south into Austria and the depths of the Alps. We're heading for the small Italian town of Tirano, just on the border of Switzerland and Italy. But there's a problem. As we approach one of the passes I was planning to take, a sign said it was still closed for the winter. Our detour took us an additional 2 hours and sent us literally through the mountains.
And how do I stop them if you push the same button?
Lost satellite reception.
From Tirano, we plan to take the train, the Bernina Express, for a short, round-trip scenic visit into Switzerland. Because of the late hour, the clerk suggested us driving the 20 minutes to Poschiavo, Switzerland, and catching the train from there.
It's nice to have not very many people on the train and we can move back and forth in the seats.
Once we got to our destination, we planned to change trains and head back to Poschiavo. But when we confirmed our decision to change trains with the conductor, he said no, that this train was going to be changing tracks and going back. But as the train left the station, it headed in the wrong direction. The conductor was very apologetic and even called our B&B to tell him we were going to be late, since we now had an additional 45-minute wait in the next town, Samadin, to catch the train back. We're staying at the B&B El Grappolo, and our host Ivana couldn't have been nicer, greeting us with some homemade wine and even offering to make us some dinner. Not wanting to take advantage, we just had the wine and some snacks, and enjoyed the beautiful view from our private balcony. The next morning was truly a homemade breakfast, with fresh-made breads and pastries, homemade jams, local cheeses, and even cider made from the apples from their own orchard. But the best part of breakfast was the conversation, as Ivana shared the differences in philosophies and cultures of the different countries she's lived in. As we were leaving, she even insisted on packing us a lunch of cheese and sandwiches for our drive to Padova. Coming down on the Italian side of the Alps, we drove through some very long tunnels, some taking us almost 30 minutes to get through. We also noticed quite a bit of difference between the German and the Italian side. We're using Padova as a base for our visit to Venice, but we found our time visiting the city center to be very interesting. Towering over the Piazza de' Signori is a beautiful astronomical clock. It's said to be one of the oldest working clocks in the world. Interestingly, it's a 24-hour clock, with midnight being at the 3 o'clock position. But what we really ended up enjoying was the market. It's a mixture of covered and open stands, and it's been in operation for over 800 years. Besides stocking up on a few goodies, I found some delicious hard Tironi, and Marianne bought a tiger eye necklace. The next morning, we take the train into Venice. Once arriving, we decided to start our day by taking a Valparetto along the Grand Canal to the other side of the city, then slowly work our way on foot back to the train station. The Valparettos are basically Venice's buses, traveling along the Grand Canal. Here we're just passing under the Rialto Bridge, the oldest of the 4 bridges crossing over the Grand Canal. This is Santa Maria della Salute, translated as Saint Mary of Health. Commonly known just as Salute, it was built in 1630 to commemorate the end of the Great Plague, which killed over 1/3 of Venice's population. Across the way is St. Mark's Square, but we have one more stop before we get off. Our ride ends near the Campo de Arsenal, Venice's original shipyard, and in front of it is the Piraeus Lion, plundered from Athens, Greece, where it was originally sculpted about 360 BC. Wandering the back streets, we found Venice surprisingly clean, and after you got away from some of the tourist areas, the crowds thinned out quite a bit. This bakery had an interesting display, breads shaped to look like mushrooms. This is the Bridge of Sighs, connecting the jail to the interrogation rooms in the Doge's palace. It is said that it's gotten its name from the sound of the moaning prisoners being led to their deaths. Just on the other side of the Doge's palace is the Piazza San Marco, with its iconic bell tower and the spectacular St. Mark's Basilica. After leaving the Basilica, we left Plaza San Marco and headed deeper into Venice, just enjoying this unique city and doing some window shopping. There were a lot of tempting goodies, usually at a high price, and some unusual ones, like these chocolate salamis. Getting tired and hungry, we stopped at this little cafe for a quick bite to eat. The food and the atmosphere was so relaxing, we ended up staying here over 2.5 hours, just sipping some wine, people watching, and enjoying the music. The next morning, we're back at our favorite market in Padova, enjoying the reasonable prices. Our purchases included some mortaroni, along with sun-dried tomatoes, pesto, and fresh bread. I couldn't help but notice the sign on this vendor, Carne Equine, horse meat. Taking the freeways, our drive to Parma was quick, only around 2 hours. Our first stop is in downtown, where we're greeted with this bronze of a man with an assault rifle. It's actually a memorial for those who resisted fascism during World War II. Around the corner, we took a quick visit to the Parma Cathedral before heading to our destination, Agriturismo B&B Leone. This is a local dairy farm for the production of Parmesan Reggiano Cheese. There are tight controls over how the milk is produced, including that the cows must be kept inside all the time and only fed alfalfa hay, supplemented by a specific amount of corn, controlled by the RFIDs on their collar. The next morning, our host Cinzia gave us a tour of the cheese-making process. Our tour starts in a room with 8 large copper vats, each one able to hold over 340 gallons of milk.
Do you ever fill all 8 of them? Yeah.
You see that the last 2 ones, they're empty now.
Yeah.
It depends in the season, you know. Summertime you get less milk because it's hot. The cows don't eat so much because they're tired and they produce a little bit less.
We're told the cows are milked twice a day, 7:30 a.m. and 7:30 p.m. The evening milk will be left out overnight to let the cream rise. That cream will later be used to make butter. The morning milk will be added straight, along with enough of yesterday's whey to start the curdling process. The milk will then be heated to 104 degrees. Then after 2 or 3 hours, the large curd is ready to be lifted out of the vat. It is then cut in half, eventually to become 2 wheels of cheese. The excess whey will be added to pig feed. It is said that this is why the prosciutto in Parma is especially sweet. Each curd currently weighs about 100 pounds, and each will produce about an 80-pound wheel of cheese. So that comes out to be between 10 and 16 wheels a day. And since this is a small family business, the father and son and 1 employee are the only ones that make the cheese. And that's 7 days a week, every day of the year. During the next part of the process, the curds are squeezed slowly over the next few days. They are then transferred to these stainless steel forms. But before being placed in them, a plastic sleeve is inserted. It has bumps on it that identify where and when each cheese was made. They are then placed in a brine bath for 27 days.
They just have to roll them a couple of times a day. We need to do this, you know, in all of them. Okay? And can you see?
You don't really have to worry about bacteria because it's salty.
Oh,
No, it's salty.
Well, that's what gives it its flavor. The cheese now needs to age from between 1 and 3 years. There are 2,800 wheels of cheese in this storage room, and each one needs to be turned every 10 to 12 days. And this machine here helps them do that. It moves down each row, taking each cheese, cleaning it, turning it, and placing it back on the cleaned shelf. Before it can be named Parmesan Reggiano Cheese, it has to be inspected by the consortium. If everything looks good, it gets its official brand. If it doesn't pass, then all the markings are scraped off. Our tour concluded with a brunch of wine, bread, cheese, and fruit. I've got to say, we really did put a dent in this big chunk of cheese. We decided to leave Parma that afternoon, not spending the second day as we had planned, but instead heading out for an extra day in Tuscany.